You said that you started practicing martial arts, Taekwondo, at a very young age.
Yeah.
How were you inspired to go there?
So I was really inspired from my aunt. So my aunt, she had done Shotokan karate throughout like her teenage years. And she had kind of seen that, I was very energetic as a kid. I liked, doing like recess, it was always fun to me, but I didn't like basketball. And I felt like that was kind of like a mainstream kind of thing. And I was good at it, but I didn't have a passion for it. So my aunt had, it was actually like, right over here on 1115 East Jersey Street. That's the location for the Taekwondo school that I went to, which is actually right down the street from where I lived at. We were just walking down the street and I saw a Taekwondo school and I walked right inside. And I started hearing my first impression when I walked in there, because first impressions matter. Anywhere you go to, first impressions always matter. And the first thing that I had kind of seen and heard was the intensity. So like in martial arts schools, right, they yell, right? I mean, you guys have probably seen it with boxers, we were actually just at the park, you know what I mean? That's really how we kind of like met, long story short, I was training over there and, Wendell was like, hey, like, when you're throwing this, like, give like a little exhale, tips and everything, right? So, and that helped, thank you. When I went to the school, I started to hear a lot of yelling in the school and I started to see like really high kicks and I was like, that looks really cool. So I was like, I want to do this. So I was like, Auntie, like I want to do this. She's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Like, I did karate, Taekwondo, they're very similar, So then from there, that's when I went to a trial class and then that's when I basically fell in love with it. I was 6 years old when I started, 25 now, and I still do it. So what is that, about like 19 years, roughly, yeah, about like 19 years. It's funny because actually I'm, this upcoming weekend, I'm going to Boston to an MIT competition to kind of cheer on like my Taekwondo people, in their competition coming up. So that's how I kind of got started with doing it and everything.
You're a master in Taekwondo. They say it like takes like 5 years of dedicated art craft to become a master. So you're like a master in Taekwondo. Like that's what it's like.
I say close. Yeah, I say close. I do have my second degree black belt. It took me about 6 years to get my first degree, and then another 5 years to get my second degree. I started to teach when I was a first degree black belt, and I started to fall in love with competing and competition and fighting and traveling when I got my first degree black belt. So that's when I started to, travel all around the country. And then when I started to, build up my career and start to get better, get more wins underneath my belt, that's when I started to get sponsorship to go to different countries and represent the United States internationally. So I mean, master, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, but at least for Taekwondo people like within the martial arts, they would know that a second degree black belt is not considered a master, but you would need to be a fourth degree black belt for you to be considered a master in and of itself, right?
So how was it climbing up those rankings of belts in the programs, and through each rank, how was it for you to? How did your confidence build in each rank, and then how did you spread that down, or what you learned from the rank before to the people that you're teaching?
Yeah, for sure, yeah. So in at least at my school, different schools kind of have different belt systems. Same with different martial arts. With Taekwondo, you have white, yellow, green, blue, red. At our school, brown, and then black belt, so about 7 belts. And naturally, students, as you progress through the belt ranks, you go different belt promotions, you're expected to, do different higher level techniques, right? Different breaking techniques, different forms, combinations, and everything. So it gets a little harder as you go through, but naturally as you progress, you should be building on the new things, but also reinforcing the old things that you knew in the past, because, all that stuff comes back, especially when you become an instructor. For me, going from like white belt, yellow belt, green belt, that's when it was kind of more fun. So keep in mind, you know, as a 6-year-old, you know, you're a white belt and you're learning these different techniques, different kicks, you're stretching, right? A lot of energetic kind of movements, right? It's fun, right? So when I got to about like, I want to say green belt, I was maybe like 8, 9 or so. That's when I kind of started to take it more seriously, right? Because each belt has a meaning for it. At least at my school, we always had a belt that had a meaning with it. A white belt was the student is pure without knowledge of Taekwondo, which means that you're not necessarily at fault. So if you do something wrong, it is your higher belts or like your leadership's responsibility to educate you. And then as you progress with the belt ranks, then you're, you know, expected to, you know, you're gonna be held accountable for like things like, you know, not tying your belt correctly, bowing to like the master instructor, you know, doing things wrong. You get to around about like blue belt, red belt, right? That's when you're kind of expected to be more of like a, I guess kind of like a leader, like a junior leader. So black belts can put you in charge to kind of teach. So for me, at least, my perception of Taekwondo had kind of changed when I continued and got to about red belt, which was 2 belts underneath black belt, right? And the meaning of a red belt was, it signifies danger. Red belt was always my favorite belt, right? Like, I know I'm a black belt, 2nd degree, but red belt was always my favorite belt. One, because the uniform that you get, right? Like when you're a white belt to like blue belt, it's like a white V-neck collar that you have. When you get to a red belt, it's like a red V-neck collar. And I thought that looked really good, like the uniform and everything. So the meaning of red belt was it signifies danger, but it still lacks knowledge, discipline, and self-control. The meaning of Taekwondo, Te means to kick, Kwan means to punch, and Do means mind control. So it kind of brought things in full circle when I started to look at things like, okay, now I have to look at it from like a mind control or philosophy kind of an outlook with Taekwondo. I love it, but now I need to kind of, you know, take it to heart and have more passion for it. So that's when things kind of changed when I got to red belt, and then of course becoming a black belt, which means it's the combination of all color belts and the true beginning of Taekwondo. So now you've gone from white belt to black belt, and now you've been taught all these different, you know, techniques and everything. But now you're truly learning like what this means, the importance of like, you know, throwing a regular basic kick, right? The execution, you know, the snap, the yell, the importance of like, you know, discipline when you're executing certain techniques and everything, training, you know, so it's always a growth. So for that 5 years, it was a really big like growing period for me.
So it's like kind of like the rank of belts. It's like a hierarchy of discipline, which gives you more responsibility, not only to take care, like you said, not only to take care of yourself, but to also help others create themselves within these levels of, you know, discipline.
Exactly.
Did you ever have a Mr. Miyagi moment? You know how Mr. Miyagi is like, wax on, wax out, but you did not know how useful it was gonna be. Because for me, Mr. Miyagi, he's teaching is the discipline without telling you for what it's for. Do you ever had that kind of moment in your?
Yes, I did. Yeah, because, you know, I've been doing it for so long, and of course there's always, you know, that moment where you know, okay, this is exactly what it is. I know exactly what it was. I actually had two moments, right? So my first Mr. Miyagi moment, I gotta shout out my master instructor, Master Oscar Alfaro. He's the head instructor of Black Belt America. It's another Taekwondo school that we have over in Elizabeth. He was my, what we would call a sabomnim. So in Taekwondo, we use a lot of Korean terms, Korean terminology. So he was my sabomnim, that means teaching father, right? So, you know, he had been with me for my entirety of like doing Taekwondo. So like, you know, he was my instructor, you know, like yellow belt all the way up to like black belt, 1st degree, black belt, 2nd degree. My Mr. Miyagi moment with him, it was actually, well, I guess I would say 2, you know, it was a very, he was a very important figure for my career. The first one was in a national championship competition that he had brought me out to. And he had told me to do a technique that I didn't quite trust. Right? I mean, like, as an athlete, you know, I mean, you can see it with, like, you know, UFC fighters, you know, like, you know, they're training and everything. Their coach is like, hey, do this move or whatever, right? And then they go and execute it kind of hesitantly, and then it's like, no, you should have just committed to it, right? And then, like, when you commit to it, and, like, you can see, like, you know, your coach, that's why you have to have a good trust bond with your coach, that they can see the technique. So Master Foul, he had told me to do a technique over at Nationals, and it worked. And, you know, to say the least, you know, it worked. It was a final match. There was a gold medal match, and that's when I took a gold medal at national championships when I was like 13 over in, I think it was San Jose. And that's when I kind of started to appreciate him a little bit more. You know, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like, you know, I do have to trust him a little bit more. My next Master Miyagi moment with him was when I was going to get my black belt. We had this thing called candidacy, and it was kind of like a training program for students going from red belt to black belt. So different schools don't have the brown belt, but brown belt for our school was kind of like a candidate for a black belt. So that was kind of like the training belt, you know? And through that process, you know, you kind of want to strip red belts from like a color belt mindset and kind of put them into like a black belt mindset. It's kind of like I was sharing with you, you know, being in the military and going from like, you know, low enlisted to now become like an NCO, you know, now you kind of have to separate yourself. So, you know, it's kind of, it's basically the exact same thing. And yeah.
Help us continue to embrace these human experiences and explore more about ourselves and others by just subscribing. You know, if you like our content, definitely like, comment, share it. But also, if you want to be part of our podcast, all you have to do is leave a comment and tell us what you want to talk about. Remember, this is the platform for the people, and we're here to explore those life experiences that are very unique to you and to everyone else. Don't forget to subscribe.